This Week in Startups is brought to you by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is the fastest growing cloud infrastructure provider built for developers. With state-of-the-art data centers around the world, DigitalOcean is laser focused on its mission to simplify infrastructure for development teams. Visit digitalocean.com/twist and get $10 credit to spin up a server in 55 seconds. And GoToMeeting. Meeting is believing. Visit gotomeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button and sign up for a 30-day trial.
In today's episode, filmed at Launch Festival 2016, it's the state of investing with seasoned VCs Hunter Walk of Homebrew, Jed Katz of Javelin Venture Partners, and Aileen Lee of Cowboy Ventures.
Just because a company does layoffs doesn't mean that they are going to become, that they're going to go to zero or that they're not. I mean, there are a lot of companies that we admire greatly and we all aspire to be in terms of titans of the internet that have had very bumpy roads over the past decade.
Then Kirt McMaster of Cyanogen shows us his new platform mod.
See, the fact is we control the operating system, so we can do things with surface of the operating system that simply aren't possible today. Like I can extend a plugin to a game development platform, and developers can publish directly to the lock screen. So I can be paid. Without opening my phone up, I can pull it out and go right into Candy Crush, swipe up, and go right into another game, completely bypassing Google Play. That kind of thing is just not possible today, right?
Really excited about our first fireside chat. Aileen Lee, come on out. Aileen Lee is with Cowboy Ventures, and she's phenomenal. You all know her. Give her a big round of applause. You sit this chair here.
Thank you.
Yeah, right here. Jed Katz is joining us as well from Javelin Venture Partners. We're in a couple of deals together. We've done incredible. And everybody is a huge fan of Hunter Walk. He's just such a great blogger and such a great supporter of entrepreneurs. Okay, thanks for coming, everybody. As you probably heard. Yeah, it's a little awkward, right? It's a little too far away from each other. I feel like we're on the set of Gattaca or something. All right, people are in a little bit of a panic. We have choppy waters the last 6 months. Let's get that out of the way. Aileen, and by the way, it's Aileen, everybody, not Eileen.
Thank you.
Aileen. People call you Eileen all the time.
Yeah.
We're constantly correcting them. Are you going to invest more money this year, less money this year, or the same amount of money as you did last year? And what do you think the market holds for all these entrepreneurs?
Yep. So I think it is getting pretty tough out there for both follow-on rounds for existing companies, and then both, I think, cautiousness or hesitation on the part of seed investors to lean into what seems like kind of a potentially we're still heading downwards. And so I think the investor mentality for the most part right now, especially thinking about the first half of 2016, is maybe I'll hold my powder dry, see when things are going to bottom out, and then kind of start to invest when valuations have kind of settled out. So we do plan. We meet with tons of companies every week, and we're kind of actually excited. I'm not excited about how tough it may be for some existing companies who have good businesses and good people and will do layoffs and really have to give hard looks at burn rates and other things. But I think for starting a company, I think kind of the toughest, most missionary entrepreneurs with big ideas who know that it's going to take a long time to build a big company are going to be the ones who get funded this year and next year. And so I'm excited about that, and we'll be very active, I think.
Jed, are you going to invest more, less, or the same in 2016? And your team must be talking about this.
Yeah, sure.
What is that strategy meeting like at Javelin? What do you guys do? You sit around and say, this is a great time for us to take advantage of lower valuations, or are you guys scared?
So I'll tell you a few things. We've seen some of the best deals we've seen in a long time just in the last couple months. I don't know if we're going to invest more or less this year, but we're probably going to put more into each company that we do invest in. Because I think they have to make it a little further. They have to reach more milestones, be able to become that much more of an obvious yes for the Series B investors down the road.
Great. What's going on at Homebrew?
Yeah. So we typically make about 8 to 10 investments per year. We're playing a leadership role in a sort of institutional seed round. And whether the market is up or market is down, we try to make 8 to 10 investments a year. I think that one of the ways that early stage VCs can sort of stab themselves to death is by trying to time market cycles. We're long-term investors, And because we're also institutionally backed, we have plenty of capital to follow on and support our companies ongoing. So for us, it's business as normal. I think there's certain verticals that maybe have gotten, we're in the back end of innovation on those verticals, and you always have to be careful about investing into the back end of innovation. Maybe local consumer marketplace, on-demand services are being looked at a little bit differently. But at the same time, you have areas that are in the front end of innovation. We're doing a lot in the enterprise Internet of Things space, starting to look more at healthcare and biotech. So business as usual.
And what are you seeing inside each of your portfolio companies? Aileen, you mentioned before that, hey, belt-tightening layoffs. Is that across the board in your companies that everybody's saying, let's plan for the worst? Or are people just taking 10% to be cautious? What's the conversation like in these board meetings?
I think it's in between 10% and plan for the worst. So it's not 10%. It's like, it has been actually. It's not just here. I think a lot of the companies that we work with started last year doing scenario planning, thinking like it's been really good, or we have product market fit, maybe we should raise earlier than we were planning, because it's a really good time to raise capital. So fortunately, we're working with a number of companies that have capital, but we're basically kind of like what Jed said, we're telling them like, hey, maybe make it last longer than you were planning. We're having that conversation, or expect that the bar may be higher when you go out, and so plan that it's going to take longer, plan that you will have to accomplish more, and and internally, make sure you're setting the messages. It's a great time to kind of focus on maybe whittling priorities, focusing on culture and leadership and development, and really using this time as a time to make sure everyone is like really clear on the mission and why we're doing this, and the right people are around the table.
Is that similar for you, Jed?
Yeah, I'll add to that. The ones that raised a decent-sized round in the last 6 months are feeling really good that they did so. And they feel like they're in a great position, not just for themselves, but vis-a-vis their competitors.
Probably referring to Thumbtack.
That's one of them, yeah.
Yeah, which we were both early investors in.
Yeah, Thumbtack, it's obviously they have a lot of cash in the bank. Their business is going well. They're feeling really good. Other companies are watching their burn extremely carefully and making sure they can make it last a lot longer.
Look, you're an irresponsible investor if you're not having conversations with the companies in the portfolio that need to watch their burn. But I'd say on the flip side, what nobody's talking about is, there's a handful of companies that we're having conversations with to make sure they don't get too freaked out. Like, we don't want you to step on the brakes. We don't want you to change the plan. In fact, there might be an opportunity to put a little bit more capital in now and hire talent that's going to be set free from these companies. Take customers when your competitors aren't going to be innovating as quickly. So I think the message shouldn't be taken as it's scary out there, everybody needs to cut. It's just, where do you turn the dial from 1 to 10? I think there's companies that are accelerating into the uncertainty.
One thing that I've noticed is the deluge of high-quality companies that are being referred to me. In other words, companies that have product market fit, they have some level of traction. I can't keep up with the number of amazing companies. These companies have more traction in some cases and more product market fit than some of the unicorns we all invested in years ago, but we can't keep up with it. Are you having a similar experience that you're drowning in opportunities, Aileen?
I wish I was drowning in opportunity.
No?
I think one thing we do think about, and I don't mean to be like super doom and gloom, but I do think the exits are going to be much tougher in the next 5 years than they have been in the past 5 years. And so the bar does continue to get raised. Like before it was like get downloads or get engaged users, and now it's like get more, and now it's kind of like get monetization. But the next hurdle is like what, not obviously in the next 2 to 3 years if you're a young company, but especially in the consumer space, a lot of IPOs are, as we all know, being a public company is really challenging and more challenging than it was 10 years ago, and companies are waiting way longer to go public. And so, the expectation has been that M&A and acquisitions will be the exit strategy for a lot of companies. And in the past 5 years, we've been living in a world where there were a lot of acquirers with very high valuations, so they could be very aggressive with acquiring companies at pretty high prices. And as those companies suffer challenges in their valuations, their interest, their appetite, and their currency decreases significantly. And so I do think that high quality companies, product market fit, that's kind of the first block, but then the next block is also even, if you're thinking about investing in companies that are at that stage, you have to think about like how are the employees and the founders and the investors going to have a liquidity event in the future, and I think that that's a more challenging thought process than it was before.
Yeah. Jason, to your point, look, some of the very best companies in the world were founded and funded during trying times, right? So I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but I think, yes, the innovation we're seeing at the seed stage right now is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Google, Facebook, Uber, these were all down market companies.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, I want to tell you about DigitalOcean, the best place for you to deploy your new application. It's super easy. It takes just 55 seconds to launch on an SSD drive in the cloud. Super fast, super easy. And hey, listen, they've got 550,000 developers using their product because it starts at just $5 a month. It's super easy to use, and the API is super slick. What more can I tell you about it? I mean, you can go and have a pre-configured one-click image of Node.js, Magento, or Docker, or you can do your own custom infrastructure. Pick what you want, obviously. Their clients include TaskRabbit, Universe.com, Flywheel, Compose, and us here at This Week in Startups. And with hourly pricing, you only pay for the resources you actually use, and you're going to get one clean bill. Go ahead and visit DigitalOcean.com/twist, DigitalOcean.com/twist for a $10 credit. And it's really full circle for us here at This Week in Startups because the CMO, Mitch, was a guest caller on This Week in Startups, and he asked me, Jason, what should I do with my career? And I said, join a high-growth startup. And he did, and he co-founded DigitalOcean. And now DigitalOcean has received tons of venture capital from people like Andreessen Horowitz, et cetera. And now they're a partner here on This Week in Startups, and we use their product. How full circle is that? The only thing that hasn't happened here is I haven't invested in the company yet. That's what's killing me. I'm reading this ad going, oh my God, I need to angel invest in this company. Anyway, listen, DigitalOcean's amazing. We use it. We love it. Any product that you hear me talk about, we only allow products to do a live read like this if we actually use them and love them here at This Week in Startups and myself. So that's the case certainly with DigitalOcean. We love the product. Go ahead and visit DigitalOcean.com/twist and get a $10 credit, and thank DigitalOcean on your Twitter handle. They're at DigitalOcean. Go follow them. They love to hear from that. And when I see a super fan do that, I always go and give a fist bump and heart it and star it on Twitter. And I personally really appreciate it when you thank the sponsors because they love to hear that our fans are so loyal. Okay, speaking of loyalty, let's get back to this amazing episode.
And is the theory that there's less competition for talent, less competition for customers? Which one of those do you think drives that sort of down market? Or is it just that you have harder people who come into entrepreneurship during those times maybe are just a little bit harder. They're a little bit more cutthroat. They're a little bit more strong. What do you think, Hunter?
I mean, certainly when the perceived net present value of being an entrepreneur falls, or when it's not the sexy thing to do, you clear some degree of noise out of the market. So I think there's really two aspects to it. Some of it is in that the quality of the start, and then I think the other part is the quality of when they hit the uptick in the business cycle. So if you started in a downturn, 3, 5, 7 years down the road, if you're performing, you're probably hitting the upturn. There's public capital available to you, businesses, consumers are spending again. And so if you're well positioned, if you're in the knee of your curve, if you're in the hypergrowth phase, hitting that, it can be a real accelerant. So I think it's not just how does it start, but I think it's where do they end up when that business cycle turns? Are they ready for it?
We're also still in this unique cycle where there is just a ton of seed capital. There's lots of seed investors. It's pretty easy to get your first, 250, 500 to get started and try something.
Starting is easy. Finishing is hard.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about exits. It doesn't make sense to me that we're not seeing massive M&A because Apple, Google, Facebook, even Twitter, a lot of these companies have a ton of cash on hand, but they're not being very acquisitive. What is going on here? Are the big companies not interested in startups anymore? Do they have indigestion? What are you hearing from the M&A people?
That's a tough question.
It's confounding, right?
Yeah. I think you're going to see it go in waves. Sometimes those big companies focus so hard on some really large things they're working on that they just kind of stop doing small things for a while. And then they kind of go back to it later. Maybe that's what's happening. It's hard to tell.
I think it's interesting. Microsoft has been, I think, one of the most interesting acquirers of talented small companies on the upswing.
Sunrise,
Sunrise,
the Outlook team.
yeah, the Outlook team, Wunderlist. I mean, a bunch of different components.
High quality
You can
products.
compare and contrast that to maybe Yahoo's strategy, which was bringing in talent and trying to get them to work on new projects. Satya Nadella at Microsoft said, we need to make this transition to mobile, so let's buy the mobile client that's winning the space and also has the team that can lead not just that mobile into the future, but can take ownership for the desktop. So I think when you look at who's likely to be more acquisitive in the next year or two, it's a company like Microsoft actually more than a company like Google.
Yeah, I
Somebody
agree.
who has a legacy business they need to transform.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think on the enterprise side, you have a lot of companies that have roadmap holes. And so on the enterprise side, people will continue, so like in security, for example, right? Like those companies will continue to be quite acquisitive. It's the consumer side, I think. A lot of the players that were acquisitive 5 years ago, like let's say Yahoo or AOL, I think that's where the landscape has changed quite a bit. Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to figure out like kind of who are, like I think Microsoft is a great example.
I think the cynic side would say it's not the companies that are holding up the M&A, it's the founders and the investors. So you have a bunch of corp dev guys who said, I'm not paying VC markups. And the last round investor, the founders are still anchoring off of what somebody told them their company was worth 2 years ago. We'd love to bring them on board, but not at the price they're asking. So that's
It's kind of like a stalemate that you see in the real estate market. When the real estate market corrects, you have people who they want to get what they think their house is worth, and then there's people who are like, well, I'm not going to catch the dropping knife. This is crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about disruption and maybe things coming off the wheels a little bit. Zenefits, which, full disclosure, I'm an investor in, seems to have turned into a complete and utter disaster and business school case for the ages. Is anybody here an investor in it, just to get the disclosure out? What are your candid thoughts on what occurred there based on what you read, Aileen? I mean, people creating, or the CEO creating an app or a macro to basically get you through licensing quicker than you're supposed to. And I don't mean to lay into the company, but I do think that it's something we need to address as a group.
All I know is what I read. So,
Right. Speak to the bigger picture.
To credit, I would say, just a lot of the mid to late stage investors who have been doing diligence in some of these companies over the past year or two. I have heard over the past year when I talk to some of the mid to late stage folks, like, hey, what's your take on these companies? And they'll say, like, I did a bunch of diligence and I found that there was not revenue quality. Or like I found that there were issues. And
what does revenue quality mean?
So basically high churn. The customer base was a lot of small companies that if there was a downturn, they would go out of business. And things like that. And so like smart investors, I think, are like looking under the hood and figuring out what's going on. And then they passed on a lot of these rounds in the past year. And we lived in an environment the past couple of years where founders would be like, oh, I'm raising this round, I'm oversubscribed, you have a week to decide whether you're in or not. And I think that unfortunately, just doesn't give you time to actually do real diligence. And so like that, it kind of created this big big hole or crater that we are going to be climbing out of for the next couple of years for a bunch of companies.
What do you think, Jed? I mean, we also saw Theranos, which to me doesn't feel like a Silicon Valley company exactly because they had no Silicon Valley investors except for maybe Tim Draper at the beginning. And then it seemed to be all people outside of our industry. What are your thoughts on the lessons we might take from Theranos, from Zenefits? Were we going too fast? Were people getting reckless? Or is it just there's some percentage of cheaters in every group?
I can speak to Zenefits more than Theranos. We didn't see that one. Your point is great, though. I mean, back then, things were being funded so quickly on so little information. And if you saw red flags for whatever reason, and we saw some, we just decided not to do it. I think David's in a good position.
What did you think the red flags were in this case?
Cultural things.
Culture.
Yeah, but I think David is in a good position now to turn it around. I think he's taken the exact right steps to do so, and I think that's probably still going to be a great business.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, even with all this apparent from the outside malfeasance and the jury's out, let's give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but some of the stuff is pretty horrific, obviously. It does feel like they got to 60 million in revenue or something, whatever
60,
the whisper number is. I mean, I wish all companies could get there, but I wish they wouldn't get here in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, and I think Jed's point, which is just because a company does layoffs doesn't mean that they are going to become, like, that they're going to go to zero or that they're not. I mean, there are a lot of companies that we admire, like, greatly, and we all aspire to be in terms of, like, titans of the internet that have had very bumpy roads over the past decade. And so I would not count out a lot of these companies just because they wind up doing layoffs or they do a down round.
I also think that, look, there you can say, choices were made because it was a period of hypergrowth, or there's a lot of money on the table, or whatever. It's true, but those are all excuses. At the end of the day, the culture is a set of choices that are made in the moment from leaders on down, and it's always, there's always a path you can take just this once, but you do that too many times, and you've created a culture where that becomes the norm. I tend to be a technology optimist, so I look and say, well, who are the role models who are going to inspire founders? And look at just from the growth that somebody like Mark Zuckerberg has made from the role modeling of when he got started, what we associated him with, and now 10 years later, speaking out against Facebook employees who might have been crossing out the Black
Lives
and All Lives
Matter
Matter.
stuff,
Learning Mandarin and delivering a message with his kid on his lap in Mandarin on Lunar New Year. I think that there's a lot of positive role models to look to in the tech community.
And I think what you're saying is, like, Zuckerberg had a pretty sordid first couple of years there. I mean, the lawsuits were piling up. He screwed over his co-investors. There was a lot of shenanigans. He got a $20 million fine from the FTC and a $20 million audit. And now he's turned out to be like a head of state.
Yeah, you watch The Social Network and you get one retelling of the early years, but then you look at what these people are actually doing. And so I'm excited by people like Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, people who are early in their careers and getting involved in politics, getting involved in causes, getting involved in philanthropy. And so, not to sweep aside problems at one company or another company, but I think overall the moral compass of tech is hopefully moving in the right direction.
I kind of feel like when things were getting a little out of control there, Y Combinator companies with $15 million valuations and 6 weeks of traction, and oh my God, if you don't close now, you'll never get in. I kind of walked away from the whole thing. I just said, like,
Wait.
You did too.
Yeah, we walked away. We've only done one of those, and it wasn't in that style at all.
You walked away from these kind of crazy demo day pressures?
I think if we don't have the chance to get to know a founder, it doesn't work for us. We're not the right investor. And so whether it's a demo day or somebody who wants to shoot me an email and say, hey, we've heard great things about you, or I'm glad we talked 6 months ago, the round's closing in 3 days, we'd really love to get you involved, it would be a bad use of their time for me to jump in at that point. And so what we basically say is if we can't get up and think that it's not just a place to put our capital, but if we can't get up each morning and put sweat and reputation behind a founder, that it's not a good investment for us.
Aileen, you walked away from this high-pressure demo day culture?
I totally agree. I think the founders, I think in the past 3 or 4 years, there's been a bit of a coaching about, like, make it fast, create scarcity, create a sense of urgency, and get it done. And I think that does a disservice to a lot of people. Like, obviously, you want to get it done, but especially given how long it takes to get to a liquidity event, like, you are getting married to your investors, and in particular your board member, for potentially a decade. That should not be a rush process. The entrepreneur should have a chance to get to know their options and who's going to be a great fit for them, and investors should have a chance to do a real diligence process.
The flip side on the investor side, I think entrepreneurs should manage that process. Entrepreneurs, when an investor wants another meeting or investor wants to do some type of diligence, it's perfectly fine for the entrepreneur to ask and understand what is that investor trying to learn. So I call it sort of understanding, like, a transparent path to conviction. What are you trying to learn that's going to get you on board or not? Because it's also unfair to founders to have a bunch of investors, circling the drain, looking for social proof. Like, we are happy being contrarian and we're happy being early. And so that means that sometimes we might co-invest with the folks I'm sitting next to, but sometimes we don't care who else is going to put down a check because we believe that if we have conviction, we can pull that round together and close it for the entrepreneur.
John Wooden used to have a great phrase about this, the famous coach, John Wooden.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it was something like, be quick, but don't hurry. And so, for entrepreneurs, it's okay to move quickly and to try to put your investor group together, and keep focused on the business. But if you move too quickly, you're going to end up with partners that you aren't happy with and that aren't the right investor for you or the right board member for you. And you might end up with a valuation that screws you later.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes too high, and then when you need to raise the Series A, you're in a tough place already, right from the start.
That was the thing that I found particularly weird. I don't know if you found it weird, but the last like 3 or 4, and I don't want to single out Y Combinator, but they are the sort of extreme case of this. I mean, I requested to like meet with one of the companies. They sent me a DocuSign for $100,000, and then a follow-up email and said, "Let us know, if you have any questions." Yeah. And I said, "Yeah, I'm CCing my, assistant. She'll set up coffee, and you can come by the office. It's going to be 2 or 3 weeks." And they said, "Oh, we'll be closed by then." And I just wrote back, "Okay."
Good luck. Yeah.
And then they wrote back, "Okay, oh no, that's fine, of course." And I was like, "But I told you to send people a DocuSign." I mean, it was kind of weird.
I'm hoping that mentality changes now.
Just think about all the time and effort and money you spend going to meetings, going across town, getting stuck in traffic from Palo Alto all the way up to San Francisco, out to Oakland, traveling across the country, going to Seattle, going down to LA, back to New York. It is exhausting, and it is a waste of time and money. Most meetings could occur with the help of GoToMeeting, and they would occur flawlessly. I know because I do these meetings all the time. In fact, I've been meeting with a dozen entrepreneurs every week over GoToMeeting, back to back to back, recording these meetings and sharing them back with the entrepreneurs as I give them feedback for when they come to the launch festival in March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, in fact. And I can only do with GoToMeeting because everybody can use any product they have, computer, tablet, smartphone, doesn't matter what operating system, it just works everywhere. And it is HD quality with perfect HD sound and the ability to share screens. And it never hiccups, it never has bandwidth problems, it just always works. And that to me is the key. If you're gonna do these kind of virtualized meetings, they can't be breaking up and they can't have poor fidelity. They have to be perfect. So here is your call to action. This is what I want you to do right now. I want you to go to GoToMeeting.com and try it free for 30 days. There is nothing to lose. Visit GoToMeeting.com and click the Try It Free button. Do it now and have your first meeting up and running in minutes. It literally works so simple that I have like a little Google Calendar Chrome extension where it puts a GoToMeeting button every time I create a meeting, and I just press boop, GoToMeeting, and it generates a code, gives everybody the code, everybody knows the link, boom, and it just works. So go ahead and go to GoToMeeting.com and get your free 30-day trial. It's a great product. I've been using it for years. I love it. It's a pleasure for me to read, an ad about GoToMeeting because I don't have to read it because I use it. It's literally on the list of my top 10, 20 products that I use every week. It just makes me super efficient in meeting with entrepreneurs. So thanks to our friends at GoToMeeting. And if you're a super fan of the show, go ahead and thank at GoToMeeting on Twitter. They love to see your support of the program. Okay, let's get back to this episode.
What is the right valuation for a pre-revenue enterprise or consumer startup? If we think these 8 to 15 million ones were just a little bit silly, what do you think normalcy is? Because I'm seeing a completely different story all over the place right now. What's your number for pre-revenue, first-time entrepreneur, or maybe they're not Pincus or Ev Williams, right?
Right.
Enterprise or consumer.
I don't think we have a number, right? I think it all depends on what they've done before. But I will say, last week I was telling Hunter this, so we saw our first pre-revenue, pre-launch venture where the entrepreneur is like, I'm thinking I want to raise 1 on 3.
And Back to the Future. It's 5 years ago, 4 years ago. That was the standard.
And I feel like that's the world that we are now living in, where seed ventures used to be 7, 8, 9 pre. And even we met a company recently that raised a note last summer at 9, and they realized that the valuation now is probably 5.
What do they do, Aileen, when you've made a mistake like that and the market has whipped you around? What do you do?
They've adjusted. Also, the other thing is people raised a lot more when the valuation was 9 at seed, right? So now you have to get even scrappier because the dilution that you're going to face if you still raise that 3, but it's at 5 instead of at 9 is different. So I think we are living in a different valuation kind of framework right now.
This is kind of like the Donald Trump phenomenon. This is an animal that the seed investors made themselves. Okay, I mean...
And venture investors, by the way. Like a lot of venture firms were doing.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
The venture firms that just threw 250, 500 at anything at high valuations, and it was such a small percentage of their fund, they didn't even care what the deal terms were. That's created to the problem.
Got it. So because they all watch The Apprentice, now you've created this monster who knows how to manipulate the media. Since we're on politics, Apple and the FBI, I'm just curious, Hunter, what's your take on, encryption, privacy, and Silicon Valley's relationship with the Obama administration, et cetera, specific to this case?
Yeah, as I was driving over this morning, I was listening to CNBC and heard Aaron Levy from Box talking about this, and I thought he had, his point of view matched mine, which was, we don't want to compel companies to make wholesale changes to their products that weaken their business worldwide, set a precedent for global leaders, and are based off assumptions of laws that were created in 200 years ago. That said, there needs to be some collaboration amongst the tech sector to come up with a consistent point of view to put forth thinking, not just protest. And so in this case, I'm siding with Apple. I'm happy that they've been pronounced before they had sort of the coalition of support from other technology companies, so they definitely stuck themselves out there ahead of others. And I'd like to see cases like this continue to update the laws and frameworks as opposed to play out in a court of public opinion.
Great. And who are you all voting for? Aileen, you can start.
Really?
Yeah.
We're going to go there?
Of course we're going to go there. I mean, this is...
I'm a Hillary supporter.
Of course.
Well, not of course.
Well, I say of course because you're picking the most qualified person. Go ahead, Jim.
Of the candidates that are currently listed that are running?
I'm being a little bit facetious.
I'm a Hillary supporter as well.
Hillary supporter.
Hillary, with always having my fingers crossed that Bloomberg was going to throw a hat in.
I am a Bloomberg fan as well. And so this is where it gets interesting.
What's
Jed,
that?
this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Bloomberg joins the race this week. Who are you voting for?
Look, I can't make that decision today. I would have to hear them go at it a little bit, and I would have to feel that Bloomberg really had a chance to win.
Okay, so...
It would be interesting. I haven't heard enough of his
You're
platform.
open to it?
I'd be open to it, for sure.
So you would reconsider your Hillary allegiance?
I would be open to that, for sure.
Aileen,
yes.
would you reconsider your Hillary allegiance? Would you be
I'm
open to Bloomberg?
Probably most of us are very concerned with the state of the world and America's role in what's going on in the world. And I think we need someone who's not just going to focus on our domestic policy, but someone who's going to help solve some of the problems we have globally. I don't have a good sense of where Bloomberg sits on those things, but I think that's really important, and that's one of the reasons why I think Hillary's a great candidate.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So let's thank Aileen, Jed, and Hunter. What an amazing job, just giving us an update of where the industry's at. And we'll look forward to following you all on Twitter and on podcasts and watching your investments. Big round of applause for our opening Fireside Chat.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great.
Thank you, sir. Okay. All right, let's keep the train moving. Kirt McMaster is here from Cyanogen. Come on out. Please welcome Kirt. Nice to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff. How are you?
Okay, so for the people who don't know, have a seat. Explain what Cyanogen is and why it's important.
Sure.
And we'll pull up the deck for you.
The idea?
There we go. That is the, here we go.
Okay, good. So we're the largest aftermarket distribution of Android on Earth. Essentially, the company began in 2009 as an open source project. And we started iterating on Android, adding new features, etc. People started flashing their devices with our version of Android. In 2013, we decided to start a company, which is when we raised our Series A round of financing. And the whole idea was, we believe Android is a super platform. The scale of Android by 2020-ish will be unprecedented. So the notion of opening it up to some extent and democratizing the operating system for other third parties, we thought was a very powerful thing. Because today you really have Apple and Google running the game, right? Siri does not power Spotify, etc. So there's obviously premium placement on platforms when you own the OS, right? As an example, Apple Maps launched, people laughed at it. Google Maps is still quite a bit better than Apple Maps. Yet today, Apple Maps is the dominant mapping service on iPhone because it's integrated, and it's integrated through all these other services, right? So we felt that the opportunity to open up the platform and give those capabilities to application developers around the world would be very, very powerful. And we can talk a little bit about that in a bit.
Yep.
But so Cyanogen OS, as I mentioned, has a bunch of different features that we've added, etc. Things like privacy and security, really, really, really potent. Themes and personalization, etc. In fact, we've had things on Android 18 to 24 months before Android and Google. Things like swipe to remove notifications, incognito mode in browser. Their privacy guard features often appeared 18 to 24 months. And Google and Apple have actually looked to our open source project and copied some of these features, right, over time. Nice, and Android enthusiasts love this kind of thing, but we're introducing a new platform that enables us to, I believe, usher in the new era of a post-app ecosystem that can really change the game. So as we mentioned, right, we believe by 2020 Android's going to be well over 4 billion users. iOS plus Windows PC plus Facebook daily mobile active users on aggregate will be around that size, right? So if you look at next generation platforms, we don't think it's going to be VR. I agree with Andy Rubin that it's going to be AI. AI requires sockets, and there's no platform on Earth that will have as many sockets as Android. So we think that the next computing platform will arise on Android. It's as simple as that, right? And most of the IoT devices and what we see in cars, etc., will be powered by Android. So we view ourselves as a gateway to the super platform. And the question we often ask third parties that we work with is, what if you had your own operating system, right? So this new platform we announced last week at Mobile World Congress is called Mod, and it is the platform that enables these deeper integrations within Android. So what comes after apps? Mods come after app. And what is a mod? A mod is a service that's integrated into the framework of Android. So as an example, when Apple launched Apple Music, they showed the Siri integration. Play me some Hawaiian music. And Apple Music plays you some Hawaiian music, but it certainly doesn't work for Spotify, etc. So we were working very closely with Microsoft and some of their services, as well as many other service providers around the world. We'll integrate Cortana into the platform. We can extend natural language to everything, to the dialer, or to the camera, and I'll show you an example of the camera. We can extend it to Spotify or Pandora. We can extend it to Uber, etc. So all of a sudden, there's an SDK and an API.
Let's show it. Yeah, let's take a walk over to the demo.
We can show you a few examples of
and now,
what a mod is.
do people choose between Google's Android and Cyanogen, or is it now people are going to take the Google flavor of Android and Google's not going to allow people to pick Cyanogen?
So Cyanogen OS is CTS compliant. So when you're an OEM, you signed MATA with Google, which is the Mobile Application Distribution Agreement. Any device you ship must pass CTS, Compatibility Test Suite, which means that device must be able to run the Google Play Store, etc. So all of our stuff is CTS compliant and MATA compliant, right? We don't fork Android, and that's why guys like Amazon and Facebook, etc., when they try to fork Android, they fail, because you're not tying into an existing ecosystem that consumers expect to be there from day one.
Is the CTS a way for Google to keep people from competing against them? It stands for certify, what does it stand for?
Compatibility Test Suite.
Because it sounds to me like it's a compatibility test suite makes it sound like they're making sure the consumer experience works. But my understanding of it is the real sinister actual reason to do it is so that they never have competitors and that Google Maps, Gmail, and everything else is preserved and not replaced by better options.
Let's put it this way. Listen, iOS is fundamentally closed. So something like the mod platform could never arise on iOS, right? Android is more open. And to some extent, OEMs have been creating mods for a long time. So Samsung S Pen, Samsung S Voice, what Samsung had to do with Facebook to integrate Oculus to create Galaxy Gear. These require framework level access to Android, right? But the problem is, OEMs are terrible at software, number one, and building an ecosystem, you can't do that with a single OEM, right? So, we know Android, as well as, and in some cases better than Google. We are a software company, and we're attempting to do this at scale across every OEM in the world.
What about my question, though?
So, we believe that the existence of mods will pull new high-value users back to the Android ecosystem. In other words, we think that as the mod ecosystem gets more deployed and robust, iOS users for the first time will be attracted to Android. So we think it expands the opportunity, and we think that's good for Google and good for everyone else.
I'm not sure you answered my question, though. Google wants to, I'll try one more time. Google wants to control their operating system.
Listen, everybody wants to control the operating system. It's why, Amazon wanted to create an OS. When you're the OS, you have the ability to have observations that are impossible as an application.
So let me ask you this way. How do they feel about the existence of Cyanogen? And when they see you in the store, do they get nervous that you're going to take away their search and their maps and they're going to lose customers?
So 7 of the top 10 apps on Android are Google services, and there's a reason for that, because they're integrated into the platform, right? They would obviously like to hold on to that. I mean, who wouldn't as the creator of an operating system? But we think that under Sundar, Google will be a little more open than they have in the past. Google, we believe, is somewhat neutral on Cyanogen right now, and we have some very powerful partners around the world, like Telefonica, et cetera, that want guys like us to exist so we can bring more diversity and innovation to the ecosystem and to consumers, right? So I do not anticipate issues there.
What do you think is going to happen with the antitrust stuff in Europe with Google? Because they seem to think that maybe Google isn't acting in the best interests.
Europe isn't very happy with some of Google's movements, but I think Google will get better.
In a way, it's an opportunity for you, isn't it? If the EU says, hey, you got to open up the operating system a little bit,
right.
Android. It is an opportunity for you to exist, and it's good for Google to a certain extent to have you there.
Here's the thing to keep in mind, right? A platform at almost 5 billion users. So if you talk about machine intelligence and AI being the next computing platform, right? Nobody recognizes the power that Google could potentially wield in 5 to 6 years because of the sheer scale of Android.
Right.
It will be so far beyond Microsoft and Facebook and Apple.
Right.
To the extent that we think that they have to open it up. They have to allow guys like us to exist.
Okay.
Otherwise,
So
scrutiny will get even worse for Google. Yeah. But listen, as a company, we like Google, right? I mean, we use Google services. We're super Google friendly, et cetera.
But you do things Google doesn't allow with their operating system natively.
I'm sorry?
You allow things that Google is not allowing.
Yeah, we enable things with mod that are just simply impossible today on an operating system.
Let's see one. Yeah.
And we'll show you guys a few examples. I mean, we're over-indexed on Microsoft. Microsoft is one of our launch partners, but you'll see many more services coming from other guys in India and Indonesia and larger domestic service brands, et cetera. So this example I'll show you guys today is just an example of Cortana. So Cortana, when they launched as an application, had a lot of problems, particularly around the Hey Cortana stuff. Things like natural language, we view these things as framework mods, and they can extend to everything. So they really have to be embedded into the OS. So as an example, Hey Cortana. Hey, Cortana. Cortana died. Hold on a second, guys.
Yeah. Oh, there she is.
Take a selfie. So, a simple thing, right? If you say, Siri, hey, take a selfie, it'll open the camera up, but it won't take a forward-facing picture. So we can enable Cortana to do all kinds of things. Take a selfie, make me look beautiful. It'll apply a filter, right? Play some Hawaiian music. It knows that Spotify is my music engine, and it'll just work with Spotify, right? At that point, we don't even need a Spotify mod. You can just download the app, and there's a hook into the mod framework that Spotify enables. So all of a sudden, they have natural language.
Now, and to do this, I just have to have Cyanogen's mod platform installed, or do I have to have the Cyanogen operating system?
We've launched a program called the Mod Ready program at Mobile World Congress, and we're working with OEMs around the world. Micromax and Intex in India, they're two of the dominant OEMs over there. John Scully, the ex-CEO of Apple, just launched a new mobile phone called Obi. We're working with them. We've launched a new brand with Lenovo called ZUK. And many brands around the world, and you'll see some really exciting stuff coming from us this year. So what I'm going to show you guys is an example of the Skype mod. What we've done is we've integrated the Skype telephony piece directly into the dialer. And just an interesting statistic, Truecaller mod. Truecaller does spam number blocking, right? So Truecaller as an app bundled on Samsung Galaxy devices has take rates of less than 17%. Truecaller as a mod integrated directly into the dialer had take rates of greater than 70%. So if you're an app developer, the biggest problem today is just discovery in app stores, right? We can do things when it's a mod like contextual nudges. The first time you open up the dialer, we know, hey, you might want telephony if you're in a Wi-Fi network and you're overseas. So that gives an opportunity to give them a nudge to do the Skype mod. Hey, do you want to do spam number blocking? Boom, right away you can enable that. So this example is a Skype example. I can call Vic, who's our global head of partnerships right here. As you can see in the dialer, there's an option to go right into Skype, but in this case, I don't know where...
And Google has no interest in having Skype built into the dialer.
Or they have no interest in having Bing built into the operating system, or Microsoft Satori Graph, et cetera. So, and nor does Satya and others want to share that data with Google as well. So we're sort of viewed as a neutral third party that enables us to do these things. So let's give Vic a call here. And in this case, I'm just giving him a regular mobile call. And
you have Verizon, or who do you have? AT&T?
I have no idea what this phone is running. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Hey, Vic, are you there? There we go. So something simple like you can go in, click the OneNote thing, take a little note while you're doing a call, completely integrated, check, pick up some lemons. I can jump right into a Skype call. It will switch over and connect. And you'll see the video come up with...
So you're pretty integrated with the folks over at Microsoft.
Right. But again, they are one partner of many, right?
Right.
So,
but it is interesting.
Microsoft doesn't have a mobile platform. There are a lot of big companies that have incredible services that don't have mobile platforms, like IBM with Watson.
Well, I think they have a mobile platform. It's not at scale, though.
What's that?
They have a mobile platform that's not really at scale, right?
It never what?
Microsoft's mobile platform just isn't at scale.
Listen, they don't have a mobile platform.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that don't have mobile platforms that if they did, they could do really amazing things. Like IBM's Watson, we can enable cognitive capabilities and extend that to developers so that you can do sentiment analysis. I can look at a user and I can see what they're typing and I know if they're happy or sad. From an advertising standpoint, that's really awesome. From a banking standpoint, it helps you to review risk profile, et cetera. In this case, we just went directly into a Skype call from a dialer. I'll end that call. Anyway, this is just an example of the deeper native integration that's possible when you're a mod. And over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see many more of these services.
Great.
Like an Uber mod or a Lyft mod, today they can't access the calendar. So you can be booking your calendar appointment. I have a meeting from 2 to 3, the meeting ends at 3, click. I want a Lyft, I want an Uber, and you're sitting in that meeting, 5 minutes, you get something appear on the lock screen. It says, hey, we're about to summon the Uber. Do you need to snooze that, or do you want to summon it right now? It just seamlessly happens, right?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the overall ecosystem. There was a rumor that Microsoft was going to either buy you or invest in your company.
No, that's not going to happen.
They're not going to buy the company. What about the investment thing? Because that seemed like it was very close, and it seemed to people that, hey, this makes sense. Microsoft hasn't won the mobile space. You guys have this incredibly innovative platform that kind of infects and levels the playing field on Android, which is going to 4 billion. This would be an amazing hack for them. And then I see in the demo here, hey, Outlook, Skype, a lot of familiar Microsoft products, Word getting integrated. Are they an investor in the company? Are they going to invest in the company? And what's the relationship here?
No, listen, Microsoft, they had the opportunity to invest in the C round. We were oversubscribed. And to be honest, I mean, when we first met with Satya, it wasn't about money. It was about technology.
Yeah.
Right? Microsoft, make no mistake, there's only 3 companies in the world that have really powerful graphs. It's Google, Microsoft, and Facebook, right? And Microsoft Satori Graph is incredibly potent. Cortana is way better than Siri, and to some extent is better than Google now. So there's a lot of great technologies that Microsoft has that, as a startup, to have these technologies available are incredibly valuable, right? So they've just been a really good partner, and they have a need to continue to press into other mobile platforms. I mean, they're supporting iOS in a very meaningful way. They're making
I have to say, the Outlook products and Sunrise, a lot of these products on iOS are pretty phenomenal.
Yes.
And it looks like they're infecting Android pretty well, and some of those products are looking beautiful. Do you think they'll eventually come out with a Surface phone or something that'll run Cyanogen or Android, essentially, and they'll actually embrace the Android operating system and Cyanogen as like sort of their way to get into mobile?
Anything's possible, man.
Anything is possible.
Anything's possible. But we're launching phones around the world.
And so will I make a decision to buy a Cyanogen phone or an Android phone? And what would the difference be to me as a consumer if I go into the Verizon store and I pick one or the other? Is that something that'll be a store level decision, or will it be a decision that I make when I get the phone home, I decide to put Cyanogen on it?
So we'll have some more announcements later this year, early next year, about some of our US plans with tier 1 carriers. But ultimately, if you walked into a Verizon store or an AT&T store or a T-Mobile device and there was a device running running Cyanogen OS and it was a mod-ready device, we want to have consumer experiences that are not possible on stock Android and not possible on iOS. I mean, that's what's going to get people excited about the devices, right? Just like natural language using Spotify. It's like most people are Spotify customers, they're not Apple Music customers. Those are fun interactions that I wish I could have as a consumer. That's enough to make a purchase decision, I believe. It's like, hey, would you buy a C-Class or AMG if you could do it at the same price? That's essentially what we offer.
Is your big challenge going to be, because you have millions of people who run Cyanogen now, right? But they're enthusiasts. Is the big challenge for you to become mainstream? Is that what you have to accomplish as a business? Or can you become mainstream just with the mods?
So mod is our mainstream push, but really it's about the ecosystem of services. I think that Android enthusiasts are excited about what we've done historically with theming and customization and security and all these basic features to Android that we offered. I think that the consumers are excited about new experiences, right? I mean, that's why they got excited about iPhone. It was because Apple introduced completely new experiences with iOS. And the apps that we see around the world today have enabled those experiences. With mods and what mod enables are a whole new class of experience once again. And I think these are the things that are going to get people excited.
Let's take a little departure here and talk about security, because I know that's a big focus for you. What are your thoughts on the Apple case with the FBI? Clearly, encryption is here already. I'm going to take a guess that you are going to side with Apple in that no backdoors should be built for the FBI.
Listen here, Cyanogen, obviously, with a large hacker community, et cetera, we've been patching Android quicker than Google. We have security updates brought to Cyanogen OS quicker than Google. We've been all about giving consumer privacy, right? So even in with mods, you'll be able to go through and enable permissioning across the entire platform in a way that Google can't. I mean, in fact, Google with Android M has copied some of our privacy guard stuff. So we believe that privacy is a right and you should be able to shut it down.
So if the FBI needs information from Cyanogen on a terrorist phone and they have encrypted it, you're not making a backdoor because privacy is important. We shouldn't compromise anybody's privacy. That's your position, yeah?
Listen, man, people die. You should give some information. It's simple as that. I think that's the noble thing to do, to be honest.
Is that the noble thing is that we
I think it's a noble thing to do. People blow people up, they should go down. End of story.
So you would unlock the phone. You'd create a backdoor.
Personally, I probably would.
You would?
I probably would give, but we would not do it in a way that would compromise everyone else.
Got it.
But here's the thing. We probably wouldn't have any backdoors like Apple is attempting to set up today, so it would just make it challenging. Right. We create privacy scenarios that would put us in a situation that we would not be able to give that information simply because we would not have access to it.
Right, which seems to be aligned with Apple. So if you could get into a terrorist phone...
But Apple's trying to do it after the fact.
Right. They're trying to go backwards and say, hey, we're not going to let you brute force this. So in their situation, they should...
So would we ever want to have backdoors? Absolutely not. That's not something we would ever enable, right?
Right. But if you could just dump the phone, of course, with a court order, you dump the phone. That makes sense.
If it was possible, I think...
But you don't want to give a backdoor to the FBI.
This is just not something that's available on our platform now and probably wouldn't even be possible, right? So this is sort of a theoretical question. My personal belief, I think people kill people. They should not have the right to any privacy.
Of course, yeah. So do you think they can, right now, the FBI can dump the phone and they're just doing this for posturing reasons? Because you know the hacker community really well. Is it possible for them to get the information they need without Apple giving them?
I doubt it.
You don't know enough?
Yeah, I highly doubt it.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I kind of feel like you know, though.
What?
I kind of feel like you know. I feel like you know more than you're letting on. Hey, if people want to start creating mods, what's the best way for them to get started in this? Because you're going to have a mods app store in a way.
We'll have a mod shop at some point.
A mod shop. I
a
love
mod
it.
shop.
So I can sell my mods.
Well, that's how you can discover. But the beauty of a mod is it's integrated into the framework of the OS, so we can do things like contextual nudges. We can give you a nudge while you're interacting with the camera. There might be a Snapchat or an Instagram mod.
But you see it as something that could be monetized? I can make a set of mods and sell them as a developer for $1 or something, like the apps? Or
right, yeah.
Is it just going to be more like if this, then that kind of scripts where like they're not for
Well,
sale?
listen, we see, the fact is we control the operating system, so we can do things with Surface or the operating system that simply aren't possible today. Like I can extend a plugin to a game development platform, and developers can publish directly to the lock screen. So I can be paid. I don't even, without opening my phone up, I can pull it out and go right into Candy Crush, swipe up, go right into another game, completely bypassing Google Play. That kind of thing is just not possible today, right?
What does Google think of you all? Candidly, what do they think that about Cyanogen's existence? Are they a little bit perturbed by you, or are they just they don't think about you all that much? What's the perception there?
You know, I think they're somewhat neutral at present. Again, we have some really amazing partners that don't want us to exist, right? Every mobile operator on Earth and OEM wishes there was a third viable platform, right?
Right.
And Cyanogen isn't a third viable platform. We extend and evolve Android, which means if we can bring new users to Android, Google benefits from that.
Right.
Right. So this is a good thing for Google.
Except when I am HTC or whatever, and I load Cyanogen, I'm partners with you, and I just take out the entire suite of Google products, and I put in Bing Maps and other people and do business deals with them.
Consumers should have choice, right?
Right, of course.
If I'm a Spotify user, I don't want to have Google Play Music rammed down my throat every time I talk to my phone. It's ridiculous, really.
Is there like a consortium now of people who just want to kind of get control of Android out of Google's hands? China seems to be doing their own thing, right?
So listen, China is doing their own thing, and Google has no meaningful presence in China, and they won't for maybe 100 years. But we think that there's a unique opportunity for us. Like Tencent is one of our investors, right? So they love mod and that platform. We're very friendly with Baidu and Alibaba. So we believe there's an opportunity for us to be the first global Android platform in China and external to China. So that's a unique opportunity.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Kirt, thanks for coming.
Hey,
we're going to be watching and looking forward to that CyanogenMods and everything. Okay.